Thank you for tuning in to The Truth with Trinity, and I am your host, Trinity. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I'd like to send you a warm welcome. Here I talk about issues that happen within the black community, hopefully for some resolution or at least some food for thought to go about your daily way. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce this episode's topic, which is why is the black woman so comfortable with single motherhood? Or why black women get pregnant without marriage? So, you know, as I well know and you well know, things happen in life. Things happen, unplanned pregnancies, situations that maybe were not well thought out do happen amongst all other races of people. Okay, sometimes this can bring about dishonor and shame, and guilt, over actions. But what is it about us in the black community, that we do things, some of us, and like there's no shame in it, no shame in our game, as we like to say. And like I said, it's one thing for, something to happen and it's like out of the normal, and it's just, something that you just have to live with, the decisions that you make, and you learn the lesson from it. But what happens when we hear some of our sisters, our young sisters, even some of our older sisters saying things like, I just want the baby, I don't want the man, I just wanted to get a baby out of him. I'm eager to go down to child support, but I'm not eager to have a family. These type of things, is questionable about some black women. Okay, as far as why, if you don't want a family, why want children anyway? Unless you're a lesbian, and I guess that's a different type of family, or and that goes for black men as well, though. Why do they want to get a woman pregnant if they don't see a future with this woman? So I think the question can be asked on both sides, but I would like to get started though. Okay, many black sisters say that they want the best for their child. Okay, so a lot of us as black women, we say we want the best for our child or our children. Okay, singular or plural. But some of us, okay, as sisters, fail to realize is that wanting the best for your children, and yourself included, involves securing a good marriage for your future offspring. Okay, so besides wanting the best game systems, PS5s, Nintendo Switches, the best clothes, the best Jordans, the best schools for our kids, along with that is securing a good marriage. Okay, so not just any old marriage. So I'm not talking about just any old guy, but someone that's going to be there for you and your children to help take a lot of the slack off of you as a woman. Okay, so that you can concentrate on being a mother and being feminine, and also for the children to have a place of belonging, and it'll be easier for them. If your life is easier, so will your children's lives be easier, especially while they remain under 18. Okay, and throughout slavery, black women and black men shared the plantation owner's last name. Okay, and held small ceremonies by jumping over a broom. Okay, so back then we didn't have our own land, and our name was pretty much the plantation owner's last name. So that's kind of how that went. Also, lynchings, family members being sold off, and plantation rape has left many black women as single mothers and countless black children fatherless. Okay, so the black woman has a history of dealing with being a single mother. Okay, if their black man was killed, if she was sold off. Okay, if the plantation owner was displeased by anything that you did, if you sneezed the wrong way, you could have been sold off from your husband could have been sold off from you, your children. All these type of things. Having children for the slave master, the slave master not wanting to claim its biracial black children, considered black back in those days. So all these type of things. So as we can see, the black woman isn't a stranger to single motherhood. Okay, but let's go over some of the obstacles and mental roadblocks that stand between black women and marriage. Okay, in 2021. Okay, number one, many black women and even black men often state that the reason they are against, or maybe not against, but they don't think highly of marriage is because it usually ends in divorce, okay? So you hear a lot of people, especially in the black community, say that, like, marriage is just a piece of paper. Why get married if it's going to end in the divorce court, right? But what's the use of having children from a union that was never validated, okay? So that this is the devil's advocate playing back on, if we're saying this is just a piece of paper, okay, if we're saying that, why get married because it ends in divorce, but my question to the people that think this way is, what's the use of having children from a union that was never validated? So it's one thing for you to have to cut it off, dissolution, but for it to never be validated as legit, okay? So that's a whole different ballgame that I think black people need to raise their consciousness to understand, the full meaning of what is being said here. It's almost like going in for an interview with the pessimistic mindset that you're not going to get hired anyway. That's kind of like saying that. So when a lot of black people are saying, what's the use of getting married if you're going to get divorced? It's almost like having this negative attitude of, you getting called for an interview and you going in with the interview with this negative mindset that you're not going to get hired, right? So it's like, what's the use of, what's the use of going in for this interview anyway? Okay. And also using the above excuse about, the divorce thing in marriage can also be seen as a cop out from not wanting to do the right thing. Okay. So you want to sample, you want to taste, you want to, frolic and be this wild creature of experimentation, but not want anything concrete, stable in your life, which is doing the right thing, especially when it comes to cultivating and having children. Okay, number two, many black females have a child by a man and feel on the status of a wife, which isn't reality. Okay, so we've got this thing in the black community, not all black women, okay? And this is a good time to make a small disclaimer. This does not apply to every black woman, but we have a problem, an epidemic in our black communities across America where, black women, have this non-realistic thinking of, if they have a child by a man, that they're on wife status, and it's just not so. I mean, you have to look throughout history, thousands and thousands of years, when you had kings and queens, even when we were kings and queens, and even the people that are not kings and queens, a man can get any woman pregnant, okay, on the side of his wife. Not saying that it's right, but I'm making a point here. Does that make that woman on the same level as the wife that has children by her husband? It definitely doesn't. And it's time for black women to come to the reality, if they want to enter into this arena with non-black women and other races of women, and black women want to be seen as something other than a sexual concubine, the black woman must raise her consciousness level in her thinking to understand the chess moves on the game board. That you cannot make certain moves, okay, and think that you're going to be looked at in a certain light. Okay, so basically having children, by a man that you're not married by is not as high of a status as being married to the man that you have children by. And I think it's time for black women to really be honest with themselves about these things. And I think on top of that, I think, having children for women is a very high thing. You gave your life on a operating table, all these things, but it's time for the black woman to secure for herself and her children. And part of that being done is to make sure that you secure a marriage with a man that takes you seriously, that has a commitment in mind when it comes to you, and that will be there to help you raise your offspring. That's where the black woman really needs to gear her mind to, versus just having a baby by a man and feeling on a level that is not legitimized, okay? Our black young girls need to know the value of their body and virginity, okay? Black girls and black women need to develop the kind of self-respect that stays intact after you tell a man no to sex and he decides never to contact you again. This is a big thing. I think, not just black women, I think, struggle with that. But I think we do as black women the most, because I think stereotypically we are expected to give out. We're expected to give out sex without commitment. I think sometimes even black men, even though they in the last decade are coming down on black women about not pursuing marriage before having children or wearing their body out physically. I think, quite honestly, the black man has a lot of work to do too, because I have experienced and seen and heard countless black men call black women desperate, even young black women without children. So, even if she wants to hold out and if you're on a date and a black woman says, hey, to a black man, I'm looking for marriage, is she seen as desperate? I don't think she should be seen as desperate, and so I think that's a problem that the black man needs to rectify. Within his own self, as looking at his own women desperate. If she says, "Hey, I don't want to have sex with you or kids without being married," she shouldn't be looked at as being desperate. It should be looked at as she has some self-respect about herself and any future children that she may have. Okay. Also, black women need to learn how to weed out men who just want sex versus the man who will marry you and want sex from you. Okay, so that's totally two different things. Okay, because one thing leaves us as women empty and empty-handed, and one thing is we both get something that we want. And the thing that leaves the black woman empty-handed is when she keeps dealing with men that only want sex. I think when you look at both categories, both men want sex, but at least one wants to marry you, okay? And a commitment from you, while he does want to engage in sexual activities with you, which will leave the woman with something, security, and for her children. So as black women, we need to be able to gauge, and that's what ties into having the self-respect for yourself, not to put out or have sex with a man just to get conversation for him, just to get him to come over your house, just to get him to spend a little time with you. It's time for us as black women to have enough self-respect to say, hey, if you don't want to talk to me, if you want to talk to the next girl, that's fine, because your goal should be looking for that man that wants to make you his wife, not some man that just wants to have sex with you for the night. Okay? Black women need to understand that having a man's baby doesn't guarantee you status or security, but a firm marriage does. Okay, so just having a man's baby, like if you got Chico's baby and Chico is like the big time dope dealer on the street, all you're known as is his baby's mother. And black women, we need to come out of this. What about a guy that has a decent job or his own career or his own business, and you're his wife and you have his children? So black women need to reprogram themselves versus just being a man's incubator for children, okay, which is plantation-like thinking from slavery, and black women just having and breeding any man's children that sperm landed in her from rape and just having sexual, situations. Black women need to gear themselves to have class and self-dignity and respect for themselves, to say, no, I'm such and such, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. The black woman is worth that, and it's time for the black woman to know she is worth that. Number 3, the black woman is more comfortable with being a side chick. And if you don't know what a side chick is a woman or a young woman that messes with a man that is, number 1, married. Okay, so he's committed legally to another woman, or at the least he's in a committed relationship with someone else other than her, and she's okay with that. Okay, and so a lot of our songs and our rap music, they glorify this, and we have to really question where these lyrics are coming from. As black people, they're getting paid, and then we're listening to it on the consumer side of things. We're listening to these things, and so we're rapping and we're singing these things to ourselves inside our mind, and we're okay with being a whore. We have to ask ourselves this as black women. It's one thing for the singers to sing it, but a lot of this is going into our conscious and subconscious brain, and it manifests itself in our everyday lives as black people. Okay, also, the black woman has been conditioned that she is only good for sex and producing children. And throughout time, these beliefs have been passed down from mother to daughter, something like a spiritual curse. Okay, so the black man has got his curses going on, from the disobedience to God, but so does the black woman. The black man's curses have to do with them losing their land, losing favor with God, their birthright being traded over to Esau, being killed out in the streets. And things of that nature, because of their failure to do what's right and take upon the land, take upon their women, because that's what God put them here for. So the black man's refusing to do what God put him here for, And the black woman is receiving her curses of dying of cancer, dying of high hypertension, busted uteruses from stressful work conditions, diseases, and children with mental illnesses because we're failing to do what we need to do as black women, okay? And we need to separate ourselves from being in this position where we're only propositioning ourselves for sex and putting our bodies out there. The God over Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not put the black woman, his most beautiful creation of human, to exploit her body like that, okay? And we're wondering why we're getting disrespected on the levels that we are. So, us as black people, we need to take a step back and realize that our position on this earth isn't the same as everybody else, and that's why we're getting punished more than anyone else on this earth until we do right. Also, deep down inside, the black woman doesn't believe she is good enough for marriage and total commitment from a man. So she continues, or excuse me, so the black woman doesn't believe that she's good enough, okay? Even though she may say she doesn't believe that she's good enough to get commitment from a man. So she convinces herself that she doesn't want a man, okay? Or that she would rather sleep with someone else's husband, okay? So you hear this a lot, like I said, in rap songs, and, you may hear other women discuss it, black women, they don't want a man, they just want sex, or they are okay with sleeping with someone else's husband, okay? Now, these kind of women usually attempt to eventually trap the married man, usually with a pregnancy, due to the fact that she ultimately wanted what the wife and majority of women want, unless you're gay or something, which is a family and husband. Even though she lied to herself and claimed she never wanted a husband. And I encourage my sisters not to be that type of woman. Okay, not to be the type of woman to lie to yourself, because sometimes we can lack the skills to land a husband. If you lack those skills, go study for yourself. Go up under women that have had successful marriages, women that can tell you about, being successful in a marriage, because we find that a lot. A lot of women, they say they don't want the man, and it's in a woman's nature to fall in love through sex, so, and if this is not true, that, majority of these women that sleep with married men, and I've said this in another episode, they end up, having sex, and the man's like, this is fun, but the woman ends up falling in love. She starts comparing herself to the wife, and next thing you know, she's like, I'm sick and tired of him just leaving me every time we have sex. I'm going to find a way to try to get, to try to be as important as the wife. And usually that's through trying to have a pregnancy by the guy, because, she starts to notice that the sex is not on the same level as what the wife is getting, and then she begins to want what the wife is getting, instead of being that woman that has enough self-respect for herself from the very beginning, not entertaining married men, and having enough self-respect to know that you can get your own man that's fully committed to you and that was free when he first got with you. But a lot of our black women are under this false self-esteem. They're telling themselves that if they're really pretty, that they can take someone else's man, when that's non-reality. You can take somebody's man for 5 minutes and they'll pull your skirt down and they will get physical with you. But if a man isn't giving you his last name, if he's not being serious, if he's not going to the clinic, the doctor with you, if he's not holding your hand at bedside, if he's not bringing you chicken noodle soup when you're sick, if he's not introducing you to his parents, if you're not sitting at the right hand of him at dinner tables on Thanksgiving and Christmas, even if you don't believe in holidays, if you're not paraded out in front, then you need to question your value of how you see yourself, regardless as to what you look like on the outside and what you try to convince yourself. And I think a lot of black women are struggling with that. Also, number 4, the black woman must stop producing her body, then get upset when that is all men come after her for. Okay, like I've said before, there's no reason why, a woman should be violated, okay? And I'm not just talking about being violated. I'm talking about, us as black women, this is part of us not following the rules of God and how God made the black woman's body, which is a whole nother episode. But our bodies are shaped differently than any other race of woman, for a reason, and it's because of that reason the black woman does need to put some clothing on her body. Okay, our body does things to men that other races of women's body may not do. Okay, it can drive a man crazy. It can drive a man to violence, especially towards you. And not only that, I wanted to encourage the young black women and even the older black women or whoever may be listening. The black woman needs to understand, as if you're in shape, if you're not in shape, if you have confidence in your body, you post your pictures of nudity and, reduced clothing. You have to understand that ruins your reputation, class, and status as a woman, regardless of race. And then we must teach our daughters, how much is a man going to respect you or want to marry you if 200, 300, 10, or 15 or 20 men have seen your body? What type of man is going to want to marry you if they can click on your profile and they can see what all other men see? And this is in a man's nature to want to feel like they have something that is of treasure and of value that no one else has. So we as black women need to start thinking about that. Number 5, black women must learn how to obtain marriage before having children. That's another one that kind of goes back into that status. Like I said, obtaining the marriage before having children, and a lot of times that's holding off on all that sex before being married. Number 6, another reason blacks don't get along is because so many of us sue each other through child support instead of building families through marriage connection. This is kind of off the subject, but it's kind of related. Because I've been thinking, for the last, 80 years, black people have been in more turmoil than they were even 80 years ago. When you look at 100 years ago, black people were being lynched, killed. We had to stick together, the mobs, the riots, and, anywhere you go, so we were more close-knit, when we were under a lot more duress than we are now, okay? And not only that, but black people wasn't suing each other left and right over child support. There were more marriages back then, 100 years ago, 80 years ago. And, now we so many black people, we don't get along because think about it. If you're a woman and you're suing some dude for child support, his family's going to hate you, most likely, and then your family's not going to like him for not being a father or a husband. So, and we've got a lot of those situations going on. So, we're suing each other left and right in the black community because child support is a form of a lawsuit, in court, yeah. So, that's going on. So, and that's what marriage does. Marriage joins together two families. And what we have in the black community is a lot of children by two people. And that's what all we have. So hopefully we can change that. Number 7, the black woman faces an obstacle of not having a father to screen suitable candidates for marriage, So if you're a black woman that has had a line of uncles, line of brothers, you've had that strong supportive father in your life, then this part is not for you. But a lot of black women can relate, and it's only the black woman primarily that can relate to this side. I'm not saying other races of women, here and there don't have cases like this, but the black woman heavily understands on what it feels like not to have that father there. Okay, to be able to screen the men, because a lot of times the black father does not have any value in the mother, and therefore find difficulty in finding value in his own daughters and have never been there the whole 18 to 20 years. So he doesn't have any value in stock in watching his daughter grow up. So he's not there to fight for his daughter. Okay, and to see who's going to be taking her. A lot of black fathers have not produced houses, have not produced things and education and dresses and things for their daughters. So they're not fighting for another man to say, hey, can you do the same thing for my daughter that I've been doing all her life? Black men are not used to that type of lifestyle, and neither is the black female child, okay? Fathers are usually in the place, fathers usually place their daughters as high commodities and to showcase them as high value to the most eligible men. And when we talk about many years ago, centuries ago, women daughters were married off. The oldest one, the prettiest one, was married off to solve war problems, beef and things, and to join together and to bring money and families and things of that nature. But with the black father not around to raise his daughter to even value her worth, provides the most breakdown in black American culture. Okay, number 8, the black woman must believe that she is more than a woman who just has sex and creates children out of wedlock. Okay, number 9, the black woman states that she wants the best for her child or children, but the foundation of wanting the best for your child is a solid foundation through marriage. If every other race of woman in the world knows that her honor is through marriage, then why can't the black woman see it? Okay, because as black women, we a lot of times complain that we're seen as the lowest of the low. Some of that is through stigma and what's been like a preconceived notion that has been passed down from other people. Okay, but as black women, we got to get our act together. We got to start studying about this. There's a certain thing that has to do with status and class and society, and we're missing that as black women. And the things that we do when we put ourselves out there unclothed, when we put ourselves out there naked, when we have sex with men and claim we don't have any feelings and not looking for marriage and producing all these children, we're knocking ourselves notches down below before anyone can even say anything about us as black women. Number 10, if more black women became aware about their value, status, and class on holding a man's last name, that would decrease the number of concubines and fatherless children. So if more black women would educate themselves on what status is, okay, what class is, and how it refers to women in a society or a country, and we're talking about American culture, okay, there will be less concubines, because if more black women had this type of mindset, there would be less concubines, because more black women would be focused on being married than being on the side somewhere waiting for a midnight call to have sex with some man that's not fully committed to you, producing children from situations where there's no love or mutual respect from the beginning. So that's what we need as black women. We need to re-gear our mind, and we need to throw away all that music and all that brainwashing stuff. Okay? Also number 11. Black women would get more respect in hospital settings in regards to the OB-GYN and pregnancy being with a husband, okay? Because a lot of it, there are some prejudice and racist doctors that want to see the death of black babies and things of that nature. But I think some of it, and I'm not going to say all of it, but some of it is because black women are going in there with lack of respect from the beginning. You're going in there as a single mother. So a lot of people still frown on that. Okay, especially a lot of professionals and things of that nature. Is it right? No, I don't think anyone should judge anyone. No, but I'm talking about with the stereotypical notion that black women are the highest incidence of having children without a husband. Not only that, as a woman, period, when you're without a man, especially having children, you're unguarded anyway, especially with surgical procedures and stuff. I think as black women, we get more respect if we had an advocate. Your advocate would be your husband there on your behalf to look after your life and your child's life in the presence of strangers who are delivering your children. Just something for us as black women to really think about, the benefits of having a husband versus thinking about the benefits of not having one, which is very slim, especially once you start having children and need an extra person there to support you and the children. Number 12, the black woman could potentially build a better name for herself, her future offspring, and up her status in society. See, these are things that the black woman hasn't been taught, because she's been blocked from it. Because at one time, blacks, because of slavery, we were blocked from society, American society. When we came over here, society was only for the European man and woman, but now things are opening up, even though a lot of people still want to block us out of society. Hell, lo and behold, we are in society now, and so we're behind. The black man's behind also the black woman is behind too, because class and society and dignity refers to the black man. That's why the black man lacks dignity, not just only because he's black and there's racist people that don't want to see the black man rise, but the black man is also out of society, dignity, and class because he doesn't understand that his lineage, his children, his women, his wife is all connected to his name, and how they're treated and how well they're kept has to do with how well he's looked on as a man, part of that. So black men are out of class in society and rank amongst other races of men, and so is the black woman, not understanding that your best bet with children is to land a man's last name, and it all depends on who you marry. It can up your status in society, okay? And these are all the things that black people were taught that was too good enough for them. But who's to tell us that in 2021? How long are we as black people going to continue to go down the path and the same traditions and practices that we've been practicing for the last 500-600 years ago? It was one thing for us to practice it as slaves. It was one thing for us to practice the things that we did for survival. But when are we going to revamp, revise, and come up with a better way of the way we see ourselves as black people? Also, number 13, the black man would take the black woman more seriously if the black woman placed clothes on her body and communicated that she was mainly interested in marriage before physical activities. Yes, some men are going to tell you get lost or whatever. Who cares? They're the losers anyway. As black women, if we want black men to respect us more, and that's not to say all black men are going to follow and jump on ship, but a lot of men, regardless of race, they will do with the woman they have of interest. They will do what she asks. If he cares or if he, admires her more. And if black women would use their power, instead of opening up their legs, instead of showing their breasts, you get a guy to be sexually aroused. Whoop-de-doo. What else can you do as a black woman? You can get a man to do this, jump up and down and bark like a dog and howl like a wolf at what your body looks like. But what power do you have as a black woman if you can get a man to marry you and devote his life to you? That's real power, black woman, okay? Also, I would like to leave my fellow black women with a few words of encouragement, okay? Number 1, if you already became a single mom, have enough love for your daughter, okay? Or your daughters to teach them the value in not becoming one, okay? And that's a problem we have in the black community. We're so every man for our selfish that we've even become envious of our children, that we don't want them to succeed higher than us. And that's part of our problem as black people, which keeps us in a crabs in a barrel mentality, because it's unnatural, it's not right, it's not normal not to want to see your children do better than you. What's the purpose of having children if you're not going to raise them and treat them better than what you were raised and treated like, so that they can live a better life and pass down children that have a better way of living than you? So, like I said, if you're already a single mom, or you're divorced or something like that, make sure your daughters at least have the knowledge. You can't control what your kids are going to do, but at least make sure they have the knowledge and understand the severity and importance on marriage versus just being a single mom, so that we can break some of these generational cycles. Also, number 2, being a divorced mom because your husband left, okay, is more honorable than producing children never being married in the first place. So it's still dishonorable, if a man leaves you, he divorces you or whatever like that. But at least you can know for yourself that you tried to give your child the best life that you could give your child, versus having the false mindset of, I don't care if I was never married, I'm just going to have babies because I just want child support, I just want children, or whatever, etc. Okay? Number 3, black women nationwide must learn to view themselves as princesses, brides, and wives instead of broad or baby mama. Okay? Because just like America and some of the racist ideologies that existed for the black man to be a boy, the black man was designed for not so much the black man was designed, but a lot of what's the word? Institutions was designed for the black man not to succeed, sell dope, and be in jail and be incarcerated and dead. This was the same racist ideology of people that created for the black woman that she's just going to be a baby maker, incubator, broad, a woman that's not to be married, only to have sex with. So, as black men and black women, we can't just say that we're a changed people and we're not going to do what our ancestors did, but we must rise above and have the intelligence and the awareness to rise above certain stereotypes that were put on our ancestors that are trying to be forced on us, and we have to have the energy and the strength to break through with that. We have to finish our ancestors' job. They broke out of slavery. They wanted to be free and educated. A lot of us in 2021, we've got a lot of opportunities. We still got a lot of obstacles, but we got 10 times as many opportunities as our ancestors did have. And what are we going to do with it as black people? And also, okay, number 5, if other races of people as a whole think more of their children to produce legit families. Okay, so in every race of people, you can say that there's a single mom or something, right? But what about us as black people? Then it's high time as black people that we start to do the same for our kids. That we start to think about their future and what type of families we're bringing our children in. Aren't our black children worth it? I definitely believe so. How about you? That pretty much concludes this segment. I just want to say I love you all. I thank you for listening and taking your time. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to take, some minutes and listen to what I had to say. I want to thank all my subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe, notification, like, and share button. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions, you can contact me at thetruthwithtrinity.com. If you'd like to make a financial contribution, you can at thetruthwithtrinity.com. You can also listen to my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor. And always remember, if you can't tell the truth with anyone else, you can with Trinity. Till next time, take care.